Okay.
You know what? I'm just going to be loud if I can. I'll hide behind here so you don't get a germs. So, hi. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Today we have Joanna joining from One Small Cog. And you guys had so many questions the last time she was here about medical assistance in dying that we just said, can you come and talk about it? And she said, yeah, lunch was pretty good. So I'm glad that you're here. There are just a few announcements. So this is our June calendar, and if you want to just keep up to the High Country news, you don't have to be a member of the church just to get our newsletter. You just have to message us and let us know you want it. The calendar's in there as well as anything that's happening that week. Some things change. It happens. One thing I want to mention is we had a really good first session in our senior safety lunch series last month, and we just focused on emails and email scams, and I think that's just going to be one we present every year because it was really helpful and things change. Next week we have Dufferin OPP coming and talking, giving their frauds and scams presentation. The lunch for that is much lighter, just sandwiches and salad. Yeah, come on up, it's fine. Come on, Carol's going to give the presentation today. Woo! No, okay. Sorry. Everything's fine. Okay. So if you can still sign up for that. And our friends at Central West Self-Management Team is doing a 6-week workshop series on chronic disease. It also includes chronic pain. So if you're looking for resources in hopes that you might learn something new just to help you just get through life a little easier, you can sign up for that. It's free. It's going to be Mondays from 1 to 3:30 down in the lower hall. And it starts next week. It might start a few minutes late because of lunch and learn after that, but so feel free to, I didn't do a sign-up sheet, but I'll put one downstairs. The big thing you really need to know is our strawberry supper this year is a little different because we have the barn construction that will be happening. And so it's takeout only, $20 per person, and you have to order and pay for your meal or meals by June 10th. And Gail Harrington's going to put up her hand, and Sheila Orton will put up her hand, and those are the two people you see. And if you didn't catch who they were, you guys know most of the people here. You can just message the office. We'll forward your email or message onto them. Sheila is also doing a shameless appeal for the Egg Center's 50/50 tickets. And so she'll hit you up for your $5 if you want to do that. Sorry, Sheila, I just thought, if you, yeah, it's for the fair. The fairs really need support right now everywhere. If you hear a little extra noise, our solar panels are getting installed this week. And so we're super excited about that. We didn't get much notice. It was like, hey, we're on our way. That's what I said too, phone. I know that's your phone, Laura. Sounds like birds, like, what do we do? Anyway, but for now, that's all I'll leave you with. And Joanna, thank you again for coming and talking to us. I'm sure you guys have accumulated your questions since she was last here, and if not, feel free just to interrupt her randomly. I think you like it.
Yes, I don't mind.
Okay,
yes.
I don't mind.
I have a notebook for questions to write down that we may need to get back to. But
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, and anybody need paper and a pen? You're pretty good. We are live streaming, so you can come back to this at any point, okay? And also in the live stream, in the description, is the link to Joanna's Facebook page for One Small Cog. So if you have further questions or you're looking for further support in all that she does amazing things. You can just reach through there or let me know and I'll find a way to connect you.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, okay, I'm going to go and just turn you up a little bit more.
Okay, I can talk loud too, but yeah, we did have quite a good conversation around M.A.i.D last time, so I did think it would be good to come and just do a presentation now. For me, it's information. I was hoping to have a community nurse with me to kind of spell off any kind of stronger medical questions, but if there are things that you guys have outstanding that that I can't answer, there we are. I'll find out those answers and try to get back to you with them. So this is just information. I'm going to start off by going through what it all looks like, because I think even just having, like, clearing up some confusion around, you know, how it works, how easy it is or not, may relieve some people's anxieties around it, and or, you know, may not. And I'm not here to sway you one way or another. I'm just presenting information for you to consider. After we go through the technical, you know, processes, I did add in, like we talked about last time, some what I labeled as food for thought. It is an adaptation of what the Anglican Church did put out there, and there's a link to the materials from them that I looked through, so you don't get my take on it. You can link to it yourself. That'll be available to you. So, and that's maybe where we can have some discussion afterwards. But like I say, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just here to just make sure that you're informed. So, M.A.i.D, medical assistance in dying. This is where I did get most of my information. This is basically the law. You know, this is from the Government of Canada. You can download the booklet, but I clicked on that link and went through that with a fine-tooth comb and then tried to make sense of it. So this is how we'll go through. So there is the initial discussion phase when somebody is thinking about M.A.i.D. It is a discussion right off the bat. So the physician or nurse practitioner will have a conversation with a patient who is requesting information. No professional is really supposed to approach somebody with the suggestion. That's kind of not particularly ethical. So, but if somebody does want to talk about it, they need to have these professionals available with the information at hand. So there does need to be a diagnosis, and I think this is where, like, some people, this is where it all begins, right? You get a diagnosis of some kind of palliative disease, an irreversible disease, and the doctor or nurse practitioner will present you with that, the prognosis, and they're supposed to go through all treatment and care options available, including counseling service, mental health and disability support services, and community services, and then or medical assistance in dying. So that really, it's already supposed to be last on the list. It's, you know, you have this diagnosis, you're struggling, can we bring in some counseling? Can we, you know, what do you need to help support you with this? Before we get to the point of really talking about M.A.i.D, and that's their job. There is the medical assessment, and it's true, some physicians and nurse practitioners may not want to provide M.A.i.D, and they don't have to. I do work in long-term care, and I know I have, you know, PSW staff and nursing staff that also don't want to participate in it, and they are allowed to conscientiously object. There's processes for that too. You can't just, you know, turn on your heel and walk out of the building, but you can object. But a doctor or a nurse practitioner must refer patients to somebody else who is available and willing to assess, so they can't just shut it down. And all patients who request it must be assessed. Now, I put in italics, a request for assessment by the patient can be verbal or written. So it is just a request to be assessed. It doesn't have to be particularly official, but it does need to be attended to and addressed. And patients can only be assessed if they have been diagnosed with a grievous and irremediable medical condition. So this is what this is. Serious and incurable disease, illness, disability, an advanced state of irreversible decline in capability. Physical, I think that is, rather than mental, because they talk about that later. Enduring physical or psychological suffering caused by the medical condition,
by the medical condition specifically, that is intolerable to the patient and cannot be relieved under conditions that the patient deems acceptable. So in spite of counseling and pain management and everything else available, once they've gone through all those, if the patient still deems their physical or psychological suffering intolerable, then they can move on to the next step. So they must fill out a patient request form. I did link it there, and I don't think I linked it at the end of, no, I left it here. So patient request for medical assistance in dying, I didn't put it in here. It is a good number of pages. It is pretty technical, and the link is there. So if you want to look at it, you can track that down. They must sign and date the written request. They can ask somebody else to do it for them, or even just an X is often acceptable. Excuse me, must be observed, signed, and dated on the same day by an independent witness, and there are strict terms for who this can be. I didn't outline it in here, but I mean, it cannot be somebody who might be invested in the person's death, whether there's a will in place that they might want access to or anything like that. So that's definitely a condition around there. Can't be, shoot, I forget who. Can't be anybody who may be invested in, if the person dies, is not somebody who can sign off for, yes, they're requesting this and we should go ahead with with this assessment. And it's all written out in the initial document from the government. Patients must make their own request voluntarily after receiving all the necessary information. So no, we had the question last time, will somebody sign me up for M.A.i.D? No, not an option. There are two tracks. They talk about track 1 and track 2. Track 1 is where a natural death is reasonably foreseeable, taking into account all of their medical circumstances. So somebody is not doing well, and their death is reasonably foreseeable. They don't give a time frame, but it's clear that it is going to happen. Track 2, death is not reasonably foreseeable, but they do have the medical condition that may be causing them physical and psychological pain. So, something like, there's so many things, like MS or Parkinson's or, some cancers or any of these palliative diseases. If the person is not sort of actually dying in the near future, they can still look at and be considered for M.A.i.D under track 2, but if they go ahead with that and sign that document and have an independent witness, there is a 90-day waiting period between the day that the request begins and the day on which M.A.i.D would be provided. They do ask that you wait 90 days and see if you change your mind. And you can change your mind. You're not eligible if the patient's under 18. If the request is solely due to a mental illness, and you guys may or may not know, this is a big discussion topic, whether people with serious mental illnesses should be allowed to choose M.A.i.D or should not be allowed. And right now, no, you're not allowed. And if the person is deemed incapable. So if somebody, for example, is advanced dementia, and people around may be thinking, or they may know that this person would not want to be living like this. Still, again, that request can't be made for them on their behalf. They need to be capable of making it themselves. After the first initial assessment requested by the patient, it goes to a second physician or a nurse practitioner. And they must also assess and confirm that all the criteria has been met, so separately. And then their assessment has to be provided to the first doctor or nurse practitioner. Okay, so once eligible, if loss of capacity to provide consent is imminent, physicians or nurse practitioners may approve a shorter waiting period than the 90 days. under certain conditions which are defined under federal law. I would think that goes back to that first booklet from the Government of Canada. I don't know what all the conditions are, but again, they're pretty tight. So if somebody wants to bump up their date, and they may not be capable, or they anticipate they may not be capable in the future, near future, of making this decision, it can be bumped up again under certain conditions. And again, the patient can discontinue the process or withdraw the request at any point in time. So just because you've inquired about M.A.i.D, just because you've got an assessment, just because you have now a second doctor, like at any stage, you can back out and nobody's going to say, oh, what are you doing? We did all this work, come on. Right up until, and we'll talk about it on another slide, but right up until, the last minute. Final consent, here we are. At the time M.A.i.d is to be completed, the physician or nurse practitioner gives the patient an opportunity again to withdraw the request. They will then verify the patient is still medically capable of confirming their decision, and they get that final consent to proceed. Sometimes it may just be, a nod or a finger wave, but if they are understanding that there is that consent, that they're not, shaking their head, or if they're looking at all like they're maybe changing their mind about the decision, whoever's in that room, the doctor, nurse practitioner, they wouldn't go through with it. Except for, you can waive final consent if the patient was already approved as eligible and death is now reasonably foreseeable and was already scheduled. So you do have to make an appointment once all that, questions and assessments and paperwork are all in place. You have to schedule a date, book an appointment with the doctor or nurse practitioner. And if that date is in place, if they come to whatever location, the house, the hospital, the beach, at that time, and the person requesting M.A.i.d is no longer really capable, they're in a coma or something, because they had done everything up until then and made that actual date, the doctor can go through with it at that time at their request. If they consent in writing to the physician who would be administering the substance on the scheduled date, regardless of capacity, Audrey's amendment. Yeah, there is I'll flag for you at the end if I remember, but there is a link to a documentary, and they talk about Audrey. It's been some time since I've seen it. Audrey may be in the movie herself, but she really fought. And I think her family did, because she wanted M.A.i.d, and I think was denied at the last minute because she wasn't capable anymore, and either herself or her family disagreed with that. And there is this amendment that, yeah, if you're not capable but everything else has been done, they can still do it. Yeah, and if the patient does not demonstrate by words, sounds, or any refusal or resistance, then they don't have to say, yes, please go ahead and do it. It'll be understood. Okay, once consent is given, the physician or nurse practitioner will administer drugs, and I do have a brief slide that just talks really quickly about, oops, go back, yep. About the drugs that they use. I don't know much about it, but it'll be there for all our researching capabilities if we'd like. They can also just write a prescription for the patient to fill on their own and take on their own in a setting of their choice. I don't know how many people have used that, but it is an option that you don't have to have the doctor do it. And the physician or nurse practitioner will notify the coroner when it's complete. They have to. Here we are. So 3 or 4 or more IV drugs, sedative, to induce relaxation and sleep, a local anesthetic, an anesthetic agent to induce a coma, and then a neuromuscular blocker to cause the respiratory arrest, so for your heart and your lungs to just cease from continuing doing what they naturally do. Other considerations. Okay, the provider must inform the pharmacist, yes, that the medications are for M.A.i.D, so they are really very specific medications, and I think any pharmacist, if they got this list ordered, they would know what was going on, but the provider has to state that this is why these meds are being ordered. Important to have 2 sets of drugs. I think that's for backup, but not being a nurse, I can't speak to that too much. Check the IV lines. Medications can be ordered for pickup or delivery, and it's under OPIP, doesn't need to be paid for. So, just really quickly, the review. You can take a look. Discussion phase, the written request, medical assessment, a second assessment, that 90-day waiting period, typically. Calling and arranging that date and time, and then the final consent when they're in the room. Okay, so this is where we kind of move into some of the philosophical stuff, and like I say, I'm just presenting options. There are other options that I have linked as well, so even in my readings that I've said that I've done through the Anglican Church, you'll see that most of the next few slides I've just kind of adapted from what I've read. Here we go. From their document, their booklet, Ensure and Certain Hope, which had more of a positive spin on it in how they were trying to grapple with it. So they did acknowledge it, and I kind of said this last time, they did acknowledge that as, whatever higher level clergy they all were, that it is tough. They don't necessarily agree, but it is a law that some of their parishioners will be using, and so how are they going to support their people that they've worked with and, our family and love and all that stuff? So they, I think, in their own minds, were trying to put a little more positive spin on it rather than just shutting it down, because they know it's not an option for them, right? Like they have to do their jobs, I guess, as leaders and shepherds and pastors. So I guess I'll just read it. I know you can, and it's not always ideal to just read it, but just to kind of process it. They suggest in one page that I was reading, if we have a belief that all people are under grace, and grace doesn't change with our circumstances, no matter how tragic, and people's inherent dignity doesn't increase or decrease depending on the decisions they make in those circumstances, even if they differ from what we choose. What we can do is empower people caught in these situations to make sense of their own lives, their hopes and fears, their pain and distress. So it may not be, and this is something clergy and any support person has to do anyway. I might not be afraid of spiders or whatever, but I have to have some level of empathy and understanding for somebody that is my daughter. And just, I can't maybe change it, but I can support, right? And we need to make sense. We need to help people make sense of their own lives and their own circumstances and their own situations. Everybody's got different backgrounds, and what might be somebody's belief or hard for somebody or easy for somebody is not for somebody else. And I mean, we've all learned this and know this over and over. Most people who follow a religion, Christianity specifically, have an understanding that they are called to live in ways that reflect the unbounded love and compassion of the God they believe in. And I think they were really doing that. They were really reflecting on that they are called to live in ways that reflect God's love and compassion. They do note that there's been a positive shift in Christian and other religious circles to have more of an attitude of compassion and care for those driven to end their lives and their family and loved ones. And I think over the years and decades, I think we've all seen that shift, which is not a bad thing. The Bible teaches us that life is a gift, but they ask, can we consider the idea that just because we received a gift, that does not mean that we can't decide there's a time to let it go? And in healthcare, they kind of extrapolate that we already let go of this gift in a way when we choose to shift to comfort measures only. So for myself in long-term care, we do have many people that live there, many residents that come in and, you know, they're getting vitamins and they're getting their regular pain meds and they're getting supplements, right? Like Boost or Ensure or whatever, like proteins and stuff like that. So anything to try to help continue or stabilize or get them as healthy as possible. But at some point near the end, they will not give somebody their B12 when they're, you know, just about dying, because there's no point. They're not going to try to stuff them with Ensures or yogurts. If somebody is hungry, you know, they'll make sure that they're getting those little bites as much as they want, and water and liquids and all that stuff. But anything that normally, like exercises and stuff like that, physiotherapy is not going to come around and say, hey, okay, but just like, let's try to get you going. If somebody is not well and at the very end of life, they're going to drop that all and go to comfort measures only. And so they're suggesting that in that way, going to comfort measures is not continuing to fight to hold on to this gift of life. And in these cases, the approach of death should not just be held back by all available means. So that's what they do with comfort measures. But, you know, some people may choose to actually actively embrace it. In light of this, could a person not faithfully take this a step further, where it's okay if they don't simply stop resisting the approach of death, but actively embrace it? I got ahead of myself. So again, food for thought. Effective care needs to be very clear in its respect for the conscience of the person making decisions around their own dying. We can help or minister with respect and care, even in situations that may unfold in ways that make us uncomfortable. And it can be argued that this is where our presence and light speaks the loudest and is most important. Christians live our life shaped by hope. Hope means trusting that whatever our circumstances, God is at work for our good. It requires that we cooperate with that higher power, God, in the things that it is working out in our lives. And this is true even in adverse circumstances and does not go against the thought that hope might include the embrace of our death. Further, the willing embrace of death as an expression of hope in God's faithfulness lies at the heart of our faith in the work of Christ. Well, again, there's something to think about. I'm sure there's arguments for that, but, you know, it's something. And this they threw in, I think I pulled this from them as one of their suggestions. So from Matthew 25, verses 35, 36, and 45. 35, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. and down to 40, he will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." So I think the clergy is going back to just recognizing that they feel their job is really just to show God in their compassion and in understanding. There we are, discussion. This here too is the list of resources. So when you have a live document, the first few, I maybe should have put it at the bottom just to differentiate, but the first 3 are the ones that I was able to go through from the Anglican Church. Ensure and Certain Hope, that middle one is the one that a lot of these adapted quotes are from. And some of the other 2 do have differing opinions in them, written by different people. One of them, I forget which one of them is almost like a Reader's Digest or a Chicken Soup. Like it has just different opinions and different thoughts, stories from different clergy or leaders on their thoughts on it, and they don't all agree. So, and that was interesting too, to see both sides of it. The other resources, there's one from Euthanasia Prevention Coalition Canada, very much against it, and they, needless to say, have some really good points on why they disagree with it and why this should not be as available as it is. Dying with Dignity, there's the film. It's called In My Own Time. What I noted when I watched the film a while ago, a couple years ago, was right at that time. So in the film, they refer to and film a doctor from, I don't know what hospital they were in at that point in time, Toronto Hospital, doing gerontology and very much supporting her patients who wanted to look into M.A.i.D. And in the movie, or in the film, it's Dr. Kitty Clare, who has since moved up to Orangeville, like I say, right about that time. So some of you may have heard of her, bumped into her. She does do gerontology, so she's not just strictly the M.A.i.D. doctor, thank goodness, and she is amazing, and she knows all about older adults and what they have to deal with and what their diagnoses look like and the whole trajectory, and she's just lovely. But she is one of the doctors in town that will perform M.A.i.D. So it was interesting to see her in the film, because I had bumped into her already at that time and then saw the film. I was like, "Is that you?" Yes, it is. And then also from the Dying with Dignity website, How to Prepare for a M.A.i.D. Death booklet. Now, I will say, Dying with Dignity, their website basically covers dying as a whole with dignity. I only brought a couple books. This is also on their website. They've got all kinds of books and videos and stuff, but they cover, they do support M.A.i.D. because they feel that is dignified, but they talk about do not resuscitate orders, different treatment options, advanced directives, second opinions, all that stuff. So again, on the whole, they are about dying with dignity, but they certainly do include plenty of M.A.i.D. Information, because they feel that that's part of having that choice to die with dignity. There is tons of other, I think we're right at the very end. Yep, there's tons of other information. Canadian Virtual Hospice. We get into, I didn't put everything down there because so much of it is for palliative care, which in and of itself is interesting and really helpful, but I just stuck with things that focused on M.A.i.D. So there we are. Again, you could ask questions. I don't know if I can fill in a whole lot more than what we've already got, but it would be worth, having a discussion about. And like I say, I can write down some of the questions I can answer, and see if I can get any answers back to you specifically about this. But otherwise, food for thought, like I say. Everybody's so quiet. Yeah, that's,
well, I mean, it is law, right? The different provinces have their own, I can go back up, right up to the booklet at the top, because that would be legislation. That's from the Government of Canada, right there. I forget how many pages that is, but it was pretty lengthy and it was pretty relatively legal and medical. Not impossible to read and get through, but it's their standard of practice, their regulations for doctors and physicians, nurse practitioners, etc. So this is what the government expects doctors to do and how to treat somebody and assess somebody who may be considering M.A.i.D. And then it is, I didn't get into this because I found it confusing myself, but there's this government legislation, there's the Ministry of Health, etc., but it also flips over into legal. So there's the whole policing bit of it and the laws around murdering people, what murder looks like, and and where it might not be murder, where it's made. So there is that crossover, and that is understood if you get into reading some of the websites. I maybe could have. I didn't pull in like the legal piece of it. I looked more at the medical, but they work in a conjunction. They have to, right? So. Yeah. Yeah, so I know Quebec has some different standards. I'm not really sure right off the bat how they differ. I am wondering if Quebec is a province that maybe will accept a mental health diagnosis, but do not quote me on that. But Quebec works in their own, under their own rules and parameters, and Ontario, Alberta, I didn't look into the differences of all of them. I just do know there are differences, and I know more about Ontario, needless to say. Yeah, I would think so. It is up to their interpretation, but it's also hammered out very legally as well. Like it's not willy-nilly. Like we could see here in Ontario, it's got to be like this, this, and this. So it's not just, how do you interpret this, right? But it's how Ontario interpreted it and then laid it out in law. I wonder if it's just that, like under that assessment, patient guide for medical assistance in dying, because that would be, and it says there, Government of Ontario. Now, I guess it is it's a form, so and it does have a lot of rules in it. Like when you fill out this request form, I've looked at it before and had to fill it out, with somebody who was just requesting, not signing up, not going through, just requesting the assessment and the information. But that's Government of Ontario. I think if you get that far, you're going to be able to go elsewhere on that site and see what you're looking for. But yeah, I didn't pull that. Next time around, I'll pull that and lock in another slide for it. Yeah, and maybe touch on the provinces as well. But Ellie. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's accepted. Yep. Life insurance will pay out. Yeah, it's not acceptable.
Are there committees like that looking at what can be added in the future?
Well, yeah, specifically, I don't know names of committees, but yes, I mean they are looking at the whole mental health piece. and there is a lot of discussion around that. I would think it's probably a bunch of different tables talking about mental health. Is there a committee? That's a good question. Those are hard to find. I've looked at committees before, and you got to just hit on the right, web page with the right link, or know the right person who sits at, the right table. I'm certain there are, but I don't know. I bet you, though, the Coalition Against Euthanasia would know what kind of committees, because they're probably sitting on them, because they're very vocal about disagreeing with this very much. So they would be on a committee. Yeah. Yeah, you can, yeah, that's what people pick, right? Their date according to what their life looks like and events that are coming up. So yeah, it doesn't have to be, okay, now you've waited the 90-day period, when are you going to call, right? Like, you just need to get through the 90-day period, I think, unless things change. And then after the 90 days is when you are able to make a phone call and set a date. I don't think that even then that's expected, because you don't have to go through with it at any point in time. Even if they're there, the meds have been ordered, your family's all around the room, the music is being played, pictures are up, and you can still say, yeah, I don't want this. So, yeah. After the 90 days, you can make the phone call, you can pick your own date and your own location.
Everybody has to go through that 90 days first, right? Like, I just don't case for elderly, they're sick, and all of a sudden they use me. They make that decision right that last week or two, or have they gone through something 90 days before?
I don't know. It's hard to say, but no, the 90 days is one of the 2 tracks. I'm not sure where we're at. I think tracks. Oh, there we are. Track 1 is where the natural death is reasonably foreseeable. So somebody is now taken a turn, their cancer's gotten worse, and they may not have 90 days. You don't need to wait 90 days. Yeah. But if it's something where you have this diagnosis and you've been suffering from it for years and you're just sick and tired of it, that's where they like you to sit on that for 90 days and think about it. Yeah. So, okay, so I'll try to say that into the microphone. If somebody is not able to sign, they're failing, they're not able to sign, or even just their diagnosis, maybe they're not failing per se, but again, maybe MS or Parkinson's or just something or stroke, where you're not able to sign, you're not able to speak very well or at all. I have had that come up as a question in my field, and I've asked the doctors who know about M.A.i.D about that, and because I've made that phone call, and they have said yes, they need to do that assessment. If they assess somebody and feel like they are going through the questions on the paper assessment and they're getting clear answers from them one way or another, whether they're nodding clearly or whatever, somebody else can sign for them, like that said, or if they can just sign an X or anything. But the key is they need to be capable of understanding the decision they're making, and the doctor needs to feel confident that they are
understanding the patient properly and that they are capable. So I think, it might be tricky if there is some question of the doctor's like, I'm not really sure, if they know, or I'm not like getting a clear yes or no on this. That might be problematic because I don't think the doctor's just going to go ahead with that. But if there can be a clear indication that this person knows, understands, can answer all the questions, and sign or have somebody else sign for them, yes, it can still go ahead if the doctor assesses that it's appropriate.
While one is healthy and but not nearly ready to meet the request, what should one do to prepare for making a request?
So if you're healthy, and don't have a diagnosis, but are, just anticipate. Yeah. So that's under advanced directives. And even if if you have a diagnosis, but you're still doing very well, it's still very early, and you're thinking maybe down the road, this is what I would like. That's fairly. It's fairly black and white, because if you would like it down the road and you're able to request it, then that's just what you do. But it would benefit everybody to have those kind of advanced directive conversations that everybody pushes all the time. Write things down. It won't get you M.A.i.d if you're incapable at the end. But if you're unconscious or in a coma or something, having it written down is still not going to help you, right? But it would help your family understand if you're in a coma, and the doctors are talking about, do we keep this or do we like pull the plug, right? Your family would say, well, they would have wanted M.A.i.d. They have said this, they've talked about this all the time, so we can't do M.A.i.d, but we can understand that this person would like to, peacefully go, no heroic measures, et cetera, et cetera. So those are just like advanced directive conversations that you just make known around your house. My family, I can't think of all the permutations, but as things come up in movies or whatever, I'm like, yes, that's for me, or no, do not ever do that. And just chatting, just having it doesn't have to be sit down, let's write a will, let's lock this up, let's want you to understand this. It can, but it can just be very casual, like that people who know you and are with you, and your substitute decision maker, really, if you're not capable, your substitute decision maker, that's on them to make decisions for you on your behalf according to what they know or think that you would like. M.A.i.d wouldn't be included if you're not able to, but it still would help kind of direct medical decisions in general.
So the formal request still can't be made
Right, yeah, because they need 2 doctors to assess you, you need to have that diagnosis, yeah. Mm-hmm. Just do it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be a diagnosis and 2 doctors assessing that this diagnosis is that the patient is saying that this diagnosis is causing intolerable psychological and physical, what does it say? Let's say pain, but torment, whatever. So yeah, you do need to be at that stage to actually be assessed for M.A.i.d, but having those advanced conversations, having substitute decision makers be aware of what you would like, and then also they wouldn't be shocked down the road, right? They would be more supportive at that time instead of trying to, I've seen families try to argue. I don't disagree with that. I'd be like, and I have argued myself, I'm like, are you really sure? Because and that is what doctors and professionals need to do. Have you tried this? Can we try that? Can we, what about upping your payments? What about having, whatever, like anything you can think of before you get to this. But
I have seen patients say, yep, nope, 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 don't care, I'm done, and that's it. And the families, I mean, ultimately, they've agreed and had to agree, and yeah.
Have you heard of any court challenge in regards to arbitration, where the subject is stated DNR, and also they would like to have made in the event that they were in a vegetative state?
It's not an option, though.
You know what power of attorney, the person with power of attorney is given to, is legally able to speak on behalf of the patient. If that's the challenge, that's all. It's a challenge. It's the same as the patient talking, as far as I know, legally.
Yeah, but a power of attorney, like that's where you're not allowed to be the one to sign, because powers of attorney can just be like, yes, let's do this, right? Sign them up. They don't want to be like this. I know that. So it's hard to prove.
But I'm just saying, if in the power of attorney, which is sort of right away, I'm aware,
Yeah.
if the patient had previously or in writing said, I would like to, in the event that there's DNR or even vegetative state, still call it recovery,
Yeah.
and go on for years. In the event of that, how would I have made?
Yeah. It's not legal yet. Yeah, I think there's probably some arguments going on around that, and especially dementia is a big deal, and it's awful, and you know, people with it or have seen it, or the families, like nobody likes it, but right now the person has to be capable. I don't know where we're at. I can't see all my slides either to even just hit one, but the person has to be capable of confirming their decision. So DNRs, do not resuscitate orders. Like that's somewhat helpful, not for people with dementia per se, but it can be helpful in, you know, if you do specify no heroic measures. And so then families, powers of attorney, substitute decision makers can make the decision to send somebody to hospital, to, you know, even get or not get even something as basic as antibiotic treatments for an infection that might be going on. I mean, that's, it's tricky because, like, I think most doctors would advise get the antibiotic, even for somebody in, you know, advanced dementia, because it's easy and it's like nobody, it's like do no harm, right? Like nobody wants to see somebody suffering through an infection, but there are lots of times where it's like, no, stop. Like maybe somebody with advanced dementia has fallen and now they've broken their hip. Do we send them to the hospital? Do we get this hip replacement surgery, you know, or surgery at all? Do we replace the hip? Do we do all this? And often the family knows that this person would not want that. And they're like, yep, we understand it's broken hip. Treat it with pain. Let's see how they recover or don't recover. And usually if you're that advanced and you've got something like a broken hip, there's going to be now, you know, all kinds of fallout from like not eating, not exercise. Like it's usually kind of the end. So they can make that decision to not treat, right? Or not resuscitate, but they can't say call the doctor in and let's get that needle going. Not yet.
Those things can be argued.
I
If it is specified in the power of attorney by that other person that they want to have made
yeah.
to determine if it's in writing, it's notarized, or something, that gives them the right to make the decision. I'm just saying it's not happening right now, it's in the argument.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it already is. I think the argument is you have not met the powers of attorney that
I, at my level, have met, and the ones making these sort of bigger decisions about, you know, what the whole province should do or the country or whatever, they've got all this feedback about powers of attorney who would gladly get that needle going ASAP no matter what, and completely inappropriately because they're just evil. Because some of them honestly are, really. So if that does happen, and there, you know, there has, I hear in so many circles, this dementia thing is so frustrating and so awful, and same with mental health, but it's like a balance of, okay, what might be the parameters? So they're not really talking, they're talking about it, but they're not really considering it right now. I do think, yeah, they might down the road, but there's got to really be some strong parameters, because just because somebody has power of attorney does not mean they are making the best decision for that person.
I was looking at one of the lawyers' website. They said powers of attorneys have no no course of action because they can't make. You personally have to make a decision,
Yeah.
not somebody else. So that's where it is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still maintain that there's the writing
Yeah.
at the time
Yeah.
that the person acting, the agent acting on behalf of the patient.
Yeah. But in writing is, I'm just imagining, which wouldn't, it would be okay, but like I'm imagining like 5 pages of writing, because it's not just, yes, I would like M.A.i.D if I have this or that. It's like, nah, there's a lot of parameters that need to be put on these powers of attorney. Power of attorneys. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's the trick. Yeah. Not yet. Yeah. We're good. Yay.
This is really informative, and I know the needle keeps moving as things come up, but also as I'm learning through my work, every case is contextual. Every case, every situation might have a different outcome, and so that's where having conversations with your family well ahead of anything is always good. Especially let them know what songs you want at your funeral, okay? Dear Jeebus, your kids don't know you, all right? They really don't know you, but let them know, or write just, like I have actually, just in this last year, I have a brown envelope kind of in a folder, file folder on the wall, that if anybody wanted to know anything, my obituary's in there, it is all in there. Because some of the stuff I experience when people have passed on, I'm like, I don't want my kids going, well, what scripture did she want? I don't know. Like and these things too, like, yeah, if I'm not doing well, am I up for M.A.i.D or am I not? So at least you know where I am. Do you pull the plug or not? There's going to be cases where you do. There's going to be cases where you don't. Is there hope? Can I still bug you? Then you better keep me on. You know what I mean? So I like to have a little fun with it because I'm not sick. So I want them to have a little humor when they're going through that stuff too, but that's who I am. So the more we can talk to our families, or at least write this stuff down where they can find it, it is super helpful. And you can always go back and say, changed my mind, you know? I decided to pull the plug, I don't want to put up with you anymore, you know? Have some fun with it, because it is a hard topic. But yeah, so dementia is something being talked about in Canada. Apparently, so I was also looking up, there's a committee of House of Commons members and Senate members. There's about 18 of them who are constantly on this committee talking about medical assistance in dying and the many things going on. I think it's going to take quite a while for the mental health to even, because they're doing good intentional work because they want people to be healed. But the sad thing is we don't have all the resources we need to heal people right now in a lot of this stuff. So That's where they're like, okay, so if we could bring up services, will mental health be better, you know? So they're just being very intentional about that. So there's lots to learn. Now, Joanna gave me her presentation. If you, can I print them out for them? I didn't
Yeah.
do that yet.
Yeah.
If you're interested in printout of it, I can print a few copies out, however many copies you want. Or you can just email me later. I can always send you the link. But I think I might, if you're okay with it, I might put it on our website.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Then anybody can kind of look at it, and I'll include the link in our newsletter. I know a lot of you are online. I know some of you aren't. So I'm just being mindful of who would rather. I want a paper copy of this, so I can do this. You know. So thank you so much. Joanna is actually going to hopefully come and talk to us in one of our safety series ones about abuse prevention with someone from Family Transition
Yep.
Place, you were saying?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to line up all our speakers to the end of the year. So hopefully sometime in June before our summer break of July, you'll have more information about what's coming up. That's cool. And today's lunch, lasagna. Nice and hearty. The noise you were hearing, yes, they are pounding up there. So hopefully they're still just on that side. Now they can come over here. If you want any information again, we're around. Gail, she would love to take your strawberry supper orders. Same with Sheila. But Sheila's like, come to me for the egg center. Go see Gail today about the strawberry supper. Susan's here for pies as always. And if you need anything, just let us know. You guys know how it is here. We roll with things. Anything else I'm forgetting to share? The fact that you're quiet says that your tummies are rumbling. So let us have a blessing, my friends. Good and gracious God, we thank you, first of all, for the sunshine, for a little more heat in our skin. And God, we thank you for Joanna and all that she's doing to help our community, especially of seniors, because the world is getting more challenging to navigate, especially for services that are actually good. And so we thank you for all that she does and for her continued learning and sharing with us along the way. God, we ask you to bless our food, our forks, and our friendships downstairs, and just may we take today and just sit with the information for however we need it to be for ourselves and for those we love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.